So dad bod just stacks on, and pretty soon you find yourself like not needing to use a belt anymore to hold your pants up.
When I'm in my 60s, 70s, 80s, like I want to be able to do things that, frankly, my grandparents couldn't do. Like they were very sedentary. I've seen that life and I don't want it.
Welcome back.
Are you saying that to me or
Yeah,
to our
welcome back.
listeners? Okay,
Both.
thanks.
Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about our fitness journey, our personal fitness journey, and then some things that we've learned along the way. We're going to go a little bit into the timing because our timing was quite different for when we started to pursue our own fitness. And then the methods that we pursued fitness, we both went on very different paths, kind of parallel, but very different experiences to get fit and to get healthy. And then I would love it if you shared a few tips and tricks at the end, maybe some things you've learned, maybe even a non-obvious nugget of something that's been a benefit.
Sounds good. We're going to talk about getting fit after 40. Surprise / not surprise. We're both in our 40s. So we're going to talk about our fitness journeys, tips, tricks, barriers, motivation. So let's get into it. I'm excited for this conversation.
Let's do it. Me too.
Great.
Tell me your fitness journey.
Okay, so I had 4 kids in 5 years. So for like a decade, I was either pregnant, having babies, breastfeeding, taking care of infants. And so I did not really have a fitness journey during that
Your
time.
journey was pursuing children, just chasing little ones around.
Basically, from my mid-20s to my mid-30s, it was just like survival mode. And I did go, we lived in a complex at one point. It had a gym. I went, I'd like try to walk on the treadmill. It just like, there wasn't really a lot of motivation, a lot of like, it just, I was depleted, right? Like I was just in survival mode.
Have surplus energy. You had
Right.
barely enough.
And I didn't really, I've never been into fitness. I'm not a fitness guru at all. And so I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have support. I didn't have resources. Fast forward, I'm in my mid 30s. My kids are all school aged. And I just sort of hit a wall, or I guess there was a turning point for me. I remember distinctively around 36 where I was like, you know what, my 40s are creeping up, right? Like they're just around the corner and I want to be in the best shape of my life, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, all across the board. So, it's a marathon, not a sprint. That doesn't happen overnight. So around 36, I just started thinking about ways that I could improve and level up physically, like how can I get fitter and healthier and stronger? So it just started with me getting a gym membership down the street at the LA Fitness. It was the closest gym. Proximity is key for me. And I decided I'm going to drop my kids off at school and then I'm going to go straight to the gym. And sometimes I spent a lot of time procrastinating in my car, in the gym parking lot, listening to podcasts, listening to music. And I was trying to build this habit, this routine of, this new cadence of I drop the kids off at school, I go straight to the gym. And the goal was to get through the doors and get on the treadmill or the elliptical and just move my body. I kept doing that and not really seeing any results. I was literally running my butt off. Like I was not building muscle. I was getting steps in, which is great. It's really good for your cardiovascular health, but I wasn't seeing results or reaching any goals. I didn't really have any goals. It was just kind of like moving my body was the name of the game. I did do a few classes there too. They have silver sneakers or like Zumba classes, yoga. I joined in on some of those group classes, but really ultimately like none of those things were helping me to build muscle. I looked over at the podium near the ellipticals and the treadmills, and there was this beautiful woman standing at this podium. She's a trainer there at the gym, and she looked like around the same age as myself, but just with a rockin' body. And I was like, I want to look like her. So I went over to her and I said, can you help me? How do I look like you? And so I hired her. She's a trainer at the gym. She's a master trainer. She wasn't
just a random person working out.
No, no. Although, that could work too. I don't know. At least it would be flattering if someone were to walk up to a stranger and say that. But no, she worked there and she's a master trainer at the gym. Shout out Plamena. Love ya. She's the best around. But don't go see her because then she'll get booked out and I won't be able to go see her. No, I'm just joking. But no, she's great. And she was just like, yeah, sign up, hire me, like get a package and we'll start working together. And she just met me where I was at. I mean, like she helps me with my nutrition. She's like a therapist to me. You know, I go in there and she just like turns my day around. We talk about everything under the sun. And so it's just been transformational for me hiring a trainer. And really that's where things took off for me. So she's created a plan for me and we've been working together for a couple of years. And now fast forward to me being in my 40s and I can confidently say I am in the best shape of my life. And so that's my story kind of in a nutshell. Before 36, I had never even stepped foot in a gym. Before 40, I'd never even lifted a weight. And so my story is sort of like, you know, starting to discover your best self or like get in the best shape of your life in your second half or in second stage of your life. And so that's where my story started, is at midlife, and that's where we're at.
Thank you for sharing. Who would have thought that someone who is a professional business coach
benefits from hiring a coach?
Benefits from hiring a coach. Who would have thought?
Yeah, coaches need coaches.
Yep.
I'm a big advocate for coaching. And, you know, I'm aware that most people can't afford that too. So it's not going and just like hiring a coach. Some people might be like, oh, well, good for you. Like, I can't do that. There are a lot of coaches out there that coach, I don't know, how would you say it?
Group coaching, online
yeah,
coaching.
there are different like avenues you can go down, right? Like you don't need
different price points too.
Yeah, hire a one-on-one coach. You can do group classes, you can do apps, you can do virtual coaching. There's so many different types of coaching out there.
You can do peer coaching. You can do, like, there's all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
But just having somebody else creates that accountability.
Absolutely. Yeah, accountability is key. However that looks like for you, for your budget, for your lifestyle, just like looking into various coaching methods and just like, you know, putting your money where your mouth is and saying, I'm going to do this and I need someone to help me and to guide me and keep me accountable. Like you said, accountability is key. And so I think that was a game changer for me.
A lot of times, I was just going to add that a lot of times when you look in your bank account, you can see what you prioritize. And so if someone says, I can't afford to hire a trainer or a coach or be in a group class or have a membership somewhere, there's something you could cut likely that could make that happen, but you're just prioritizing the thing that you're not cutting. Sure. Whether it's Starbucks or some expense. And I'm not saying that we go through life cutting all of the quote unquote frivolous stuff, because a lot of the stuff that fall in that category is the stuff that gives us joy. You could say spending the money on gas to drive down to sit and watch a sunset is a frivolous waste of money, but maybe that's how you reset your whole day. I know that is for us. One of the ways that reset our day. But
and look, like I would argue, you know, you might look at it like an expense, but how's it going to affect you later on down the road? Are you going to be paying into this and investing into your health now? Or are you going to be paying the expense later in medical bills, medications, you know, like all of the stuff that'll come down the road if you don't take care of yourself? There's going to be an expense either way, right?
I think almost it's either you have to make a choice. The money's going out. Mm-hmm. It's either going to be an expense or an investment. If it's an investment, it's on the front end of building health. If it's an expense, it's on the back end of taking care of a lack of health, right? Yeah. And so that's really the choice that you're making as you enter midlife.
So fun.
So
tell us about your fitness journey. Tell me about
my fitness journey was different, very different.
You've always been an active guy. You're a soccer player. You've been on teams. You're very competitive, athletic. So what worked? What didn't?
Well, I played in college, played soccer in college, sat on the bench a lot. Probably would have gotten in the game more if I had listened to the coaches and hit the gym. But I wasn't required to hit the gym when I was in college. We didn't really focus on the gym or on nutrition. That kind of got really popular after. I'm showing my age. I'm 46, so
wasn't popular in the 90s.
Yeah, in the 90s, it wasn't as popular. It wasn't as talked about, like all the off-field stuff that makes your on-field performance better. So I didn't really have those early experiences that a lot of people have of college-age years, kind of working out and stuff. So
I'm sure your coach told you to hit the gym, but you probably didn't understand holistically, like the benefits of it.
Yeah, I didn't connect that to more playing time on the field, or I'm sure I probably would have been more motivated to go to the gym more often. But anyway, just went through life. I was always thin, athletic, kind of a surfer sort of a physique. And I just always thought that was like, well, that's my body type. Like we have
That's
body
your lot
types.
in life.
Yes, we have body types. And then I broke my leg really badly right before COVID. So I was bedridden for 4 months. And I mean, you eat a lot of nachos at 3 a.m. when you're bedridden and COVID hits. And so dad bod just stacks on. And pretty soon you find yourself like not needing to use a belt anymore to hold your pants up. You're really just getting older and all your friends are around you. A lot of your peers are going through the same thing. Your body's changing and it's not metabolizing as quickly anymore. So the same bad habits that had no impact before now all of a sudden have a huge impact.
Right.
And so as I was coming out of the injury and the first couple of years of rehabbing, it just wasn't healing for the first 2 years, really. It wasn't healing to a point where I thought, oh, I'll ever be able to play again. I don't think that's possible. And so then I lost like the one consistent active thing where, you know, if you have some bad habits, but you're going out and you're playing soccer 3 times a week and you're running for an hour and a half to 2 hours, pick up with the friends and then games each time, you're getting 5-6 hours of really intense fitness, like exercise. You're burning a lot of calories. Mm-hmm. It's covering for a lot of sins in the kitchen. And so it kind of came to a point ahead to me in the fall of 2023. I was at a school in Kenya, an agriculture school, and I was looking around, and I was the Mzungu, the only Mzungu.
What's that?
That's simplified down. That is the Swahili version of a gringo, the white guy traveling, wandering through. So I was the only white guy in there, and I was also the only guy that looked like he was on an American diet.
Right.
And so I was like, oh my gosh, it was just like really standing out. And so I saw this opportunity to drop a little bit of cash and sign up for a group accountability thing where it's all going to be online, weekly check-ins. And
how did you discover this group?
I'm a part of a group called GoBundance, and Rami is the fitness guy in there, one of the guys who leads in that pillar. We have 6 pillars that we believe contribute to living a fulfilled life. And one of them is genuine contribution, which is what I was doing in Kenya, genuine community contribution. Another one is age-defying health, which is where Rami really specializes. So he leads groups of men every year through this program. It's called the Total Body Transformation Program. And I signed up for it, and then I messaged you, and I was like, I did something bonkers. And you're like, what? And I'm like, I signed up for this fitness thing. And you're like, well, what's it about? Tell me about it. You're excited, right? Because you're like, oh,
okay,
man.
So I just need to say, the year before, I really started, so I hired my trainer in 2021. And then in 2022, you really started noticing changes. And maybe you were a little intimidated by my hotness, but you were like, oh, maybe I should go start seeing your trainer. So you tried. You came and saw her, but it just wasn't the right fit for you.
No.
And so then I think then when you went away and you kind of like looked around and you were like, whoa, like I'm way out of shape and I need to do something about this. Then you figured that you found something that was the right fit for you, right? So you kind of already were like, I think the seeds were planted. Like you knew you needed to switch things up. You needed to try doing some strength training and figure out what would work for you. But then this kind of presented itself.
Yeah, and also just becoming aware of the fact that we lose 3% of our body fat, or body fat. I wish we lose 3% of our muscle mass every year. After once we get into our 40s, we just have a physical decline that happens. And so what you're doing in your late 30s into your early 40s into your 50s is determining what your life is going to look like in your 60s, 70s, and 80s. And a lot of the unhealthy choices turn into an unhealthy life that has a lot of challenges later. And a lot of the healthy choices have a direct correlation to living a more active and healthy lifestyle. And I love things like surfing. I love things outside. I enjoy being active. I want to, go on more backpacking trips with our kids and stuff. And you just can't do that if you're not mobile at all, right? And there's some loss of mobility that's totally out of our control.
Sure.
And there are experiences and events that place that totally out of our control no matter what choices we make, right? So I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking specifically about the things we can control. So I started realizing that I wasn't putting any time, effort, energy into controlling what I could control. And so that was like, okay, how do I start doing that?
And it sounds like you were really thinking ahead into the future, like for your longevity, you
Yeah.
need to do something now. You kind of like had this awareness, right?
Yeah.
And I totally relate to that. That resonates with me because, like, look, working out, getting results, and looking good naked is like
Whoa. I mean, you already said breast and now you said naked. We might have to have a warning
that's
label
great.
on this one.
It's really good to do something to help you for when you look in the mirror to feel good, right? Like to like what you see. But moreover than that, like when people talk to me about health and fitness and we start talking about my why, like my why is way deeper than that. I want to be able to play with my grandkids one day. I want to be able to lift that carry on into the overhead and not have any help from
Whoa,
anybody.
why do you make me do it every time then?
No, I mean, like, I'm thinking ahead when I'm older, into
And I'm
my...
no longer around because I'm significantly older than you. Now you got to put the suitcase up there yourself. I get it.
No, but when I'm in my 60s, 70s, 80s, like, I want to be able to do things that, frankly, my grandparents couldn't do. Like, they were very sedentary, and I don't want that. I've seen that life, and I don't want it. And so I'm really now thinking about in my 40s how I can invest in myself now so that in the future I have that strength, that mobility, so that I can do the things and show up the way that I want to.
Yeah. So if I was to break down the biggest differences between how you pursued health and how I pursued health, you were personal trainer at the gym, regular routine, and that did not work for me. And
I think you went through kind of a little bit of a frustrating trial and error time, right?
Yeah, because nothing works the first day.
Right.
And no changes have happened the 5th day and the 10th day and the 15th day. You're still lifting the bar when you see a 70-year-old man in the gym who's just like got plates on it and he's doing sit-ups and crunches and pull-ups between it. And you're like, oh my gosh, there's just like
it's a little bit demoralizing.
No improvement. Yeah. And so for me, I needed the accountability some way. And so that group, we have a group WhatsApp that we're chatting on and encouraging each other. And I was able to go in there and say stuff like, okay, guys, I'm struggling. Like
Right.
I literally hate this. I wake up hating it. As soon as the workout's done, I'm like relieved it's over, but I'm already thinking about the next day's workout. And it was intense. Like
So
we
yeah,
started,
you're calling it a group, but this was a challenge. So tell our listeners, like, you signed up for this challenge.
10-month challenge.
It was 10 months, and how did it all...
So we start with the
culminate?
bulking phase. So I had a couple things that were fortunate. One, I thought what I pictured working out, I pictured a cut. Like the cut phase, I thought that was the whole 10 months. So having a calorie deficit, like not having any energy, headaches from lack of like sugar and caffeine, and although caffeine you can hit hard the whole time, I didn't really understand that the bulking stage is hard but fun hard, right? It's like eat more than you would normally eat and then have another chicken breast, right? So that was kind of fun to learn. That I was, I have 6 months of eating like everything I see, the right foods, but eating everything I can get my hands on is amazing. And so I had nutritional accountability with someone that was watching. I would submit pictures every Monday. And every Monday morning, we send, first thing in the morning, you'd submit pictures, no working out, no flexing, just like come as you are, first thing in the morning. And then they would look at the pictures and compare to your previous pictures. And our one responsibility was tracking our macros very accurately so that any adjustments they made were based off the numbers that we were submitting. So we couldn't say like we're having 2,100 calories and really we're having 2,800 calories and we can't figure out why things aren't working. They're like, well, just go down to 2,200. And they're like, man, we can't go lighter than that. And we've just dropped to 27 because we're way off. You have to actually count accurately, get a little scale, do stuff. So, and we'll get into my hack for later for how I got around having to weigh everything. But for me, the group accountability was great. But then also 10 months from the start day, I was going to get up and walk across stage in little tiny shorts and no shirt. And it didn't matter if I was fit or not. I was going to do it.
So at
We'd
the
all
end of this
committed to it.
challenge, you all committed to fly to a location
Yep.
and walk across the stage. There was like 20 something of you. And whether you still had your dad bod.
There were like 26 that started and 24 that finished. And so
Right.
it was incredibly high accountability and success rate. And then I think there were 20 of us at the event. Some had different things. One guy, yeah, people flew in from all kinds of people. Like one guy, his wedding was like right around the date, but he still flew in. And actually his wedding was right before. So he froze the wedding cake so he could eat it after the competition was done. But that was the accountability, was that we're going to walk across the stage, come heck or high water.
Right.
We're going to walk across the stage with no shirt on and little shorty shorts and then flex in front of a couple hundred people,
Right.
our peers.
Yeah.
And so it was a little bit daunting. And we all have genetics at play. We all have different areas. Like one of us, we eat one donut and all of a sudden, our flanks are flanking us, right? And we have a Snickers bar and we've got a big belly all of a sudden, right? So we all have different areas that are quote unquote like problem areas. And for me, it's my belly. And I just started understanding the research more and more that our belly fat is the most dangerous fat for heart-related stuff. And I have uncles who have dealt with heart-related issues, and it's in my family. And so I'm starting to think about that, like, well, okay, so I'm, belly fat is where I can be skinny everywhere else and I can still have a belly. On top of that, I have a gluten allergy, so I get the gluten belly, which is just get swollen. There's nothing I can do about that. If I eat the wrong food, I get bloated and swollen, and it's really tough to flex a six-pack through a swollen belly, but you gotta try or do a better job of avoiding gluten. And so there were a bunch of different things where I just kind of was like, well, this is my lot, this is how it is, right? And I'd seen, all my cousins were older than me, and I'd seen different cousins deal with different challenges related to, really tied into their jobs, like how sedentary their jobs are, how much they get to get up and move around. But I just knew that the natural progression is not towards better health for most of us, right? We don't turn 40 and then all of a sudden we're like, oh, now I have a six pack, now I have muscles, right? When we didn't before that. So I knew that was a trajectory I could go. And so I sat there and I just thought to myself, I'm like, okay, 1 year from now, I was in Kenya in my little room at the farm there. And I said, okay, so 1 year from now, it was in October. And so it was exactly a year away from when the competition was going to end. Yeah, it was exactly a year away. So I said, okay, 1 year from now, my whole life has changed, or it's exactly the same in this area. And it just comes down to, am I willing to put some money where my mouth is? And so we didn't have the cash.
Are you willing to make that choice?
Yeah. Are you willing to make the choice to invest in your health? And so we didn't have the money. It was a good chunk of money to do this. And so I put it on a credit card and I was like, okay, I believe in paying off credit cards as quickly as possible. So that was the goal, but I put it on the credit card and then I said, okay, I'm going to do everything they tell me to do. And then when it doesn't work, it's going to be their fault. Because I still didn't believe that I could have a totally different physique. Mm-hmm. I didn't, it's like, oh yeah, you see people your age that are just like cut and you're like, man, they're so lucky. Some of it, like some people can be like that and they do nothing. They don't have to work out. They're doing. For the vast majority of us, we put work into it. So I discovered a few things through the process. One is that I thought when people said they felt good when they worked out, that it meant during the workout, and it doesn't. It means the whole day after the workout, and the next day you feel good. You feel really good. Your body feels good.
Oh, all those are endorphins. Yeah, just like pumping through your body.
So I'm lifting weights going like, and I enjoy none of this. People do it for this experience. This sucks, right? But really, it's the experience afterwards. The other thing was that I couldn't move. My body hurt so much the first bit. It was such a shock to my body that for the first several weeks, it was just like everything hurt. None of this is fun. None of this is enjoyable. I tried to play pickleball. I couldn't get across to hit the ball. I couldn't lean over, couldn't carry anything. And it was just every day, just tearing muscles is what it felt like every single day.
After a good leg day, it's hard to even sit down on the toilet.
Yeah. So. Yeah, it's true. That is, when people say sit down, that's what they're talking about. I can't even sit. They're picturing themselves on a toilet. It's the worst. It's just low enough that it kills every muscle in your legs.
Right.
So I started to just ask the guys and say, like, at what point do I stop hating this? And a couple guys chimed in. They hopped on little one-on-one chats with me right away. And they just started saying, they're like, dude, it's going to suck for a while. Try to put enjoying it out of your mind. That's going to take a long time because it could be 2 to 3 months. But what you're doing is you're changing your brain around it, and you're changing your body, but you're changing your brain around the fitness so that your brain understands that there's a reward. You're not experiencing any reward right now. You don't look any different. You don't feel any different. You just feel worse. So how is this a good thing, and why should you do it, right? That's why a lot of people quit.
Right.
But I was like, okay, I said I'm going to do it for the 10 months. I'm going to do it for the 10 months. And then another thing that really helped me was that I wasn't noticing any change in the mirror. Like I wasn't even looking because I wasn't expecting any change I figured it'd be like 4, 5, 6 months, right? And unfortunately, on one of the calls, one of the guys said that this muscle right there, you start to notice your shirts fit a little bit different. I was like, oh. And I went and looked in the mirror. I was like, oh. And so you just start to notice little things. And then somebody stopped us at Dick's Sporting Good, and they were like, Jovan, like, what are you doing differently?
It was a parent from our child's school, and they hadn't seen you for a while.
Yeah.
And they made a comment. You were like, oh, like
you can tell.
Yeah, I think that's when it hit you. I remember that. And I mean, I was telling you, like, I'm seeing changes, but you see yourself in the mirror every day, right? And you're not really seeing it. But then when somebody else tells you that, then it's like, huh.
Yeah. So that was my first like call out where somebody in a really good way was like,
how far into the challenge?
Oh, that was probably like 3 months.
Okay.
3 or 4. Because everybody started in January, but we were still in Hawaii. So I started like January 18th.
Got it.
So I had a couple things that set me back a little bit. I started January 18th. We also went on a 19-day backpacking trip in the middle of it. And then I got a really bad stomach virus, and I lost 9 pounds in 6 days.
When
right at the end of our bulk.
Bulking,
yeah. The last part of the bulk, when everybody's just like smashing calories into their face, I was like... Barfing. I was getting rid of all my calories. And so then I did stay on the bulk for a little bit longer than everybody, and then had a shorter cut. But it was really encouraging to go and meet up with those guys in person for the first time. And everybody was at different levels. And then I was like, oh, I did do a good job. Like I went there thinking like, oh, I didn't do great, right? But I went there. They were super encouraging. They were talking about my 12-pack, which I knew that I didn't have as much muscle in some other areas. I am lean. So lean does a couple things. I have long arms and long legs. It stretches out the muscles, but I can feel really fit and be a lot stronger without putting on tons of mass, what looks like mass, right? I knew I was on my farmer's carry, like the first ones, I was carrying like, oh man, I was carrying like 25 pounds a side and doing the farmer walk, and I could barely do it. And now it's like 75 pounds a side. And I know I am a bit bigger, but I'm not that much bigger. So it does kind of hide it. But my main goal was like, I wanted to surf better. And your fitness really impacts your balance, especially stomach weight really impacts your balance. My surfing started improving, getting a lot better, a lot faster. And then my knee, which I wasn't expecting, started getting a lot better. The muscle around it started strengthening, and then just the knee, just the controlled, slow lifting over and over again. One of the main issues is that the cradle of the bone didn't fit great. It had to be totally remade, right? And so I think lifting the weights and doing it controlled and doing it slow and stuff, it helped to kind of form that pocket for my knee to sit in. And so I was able to start doing stuff without all the pain afterwards.
Right.
And so that was a big change.
For people who don't know, who are listening, you split your tibia right before COVID, and they told us after the surgery that you would never play soccer again, and you would most likely never walk without a cane again. You did all of the physical rehab to be able to walk again without a cane, which was awesome. But playing soccer was still a challenge for you. You couldn't even really run across the street.
No. I would think I could, because I couldn't remember how bad it was, because I could walk fine. But then I go to hustle across the street with a car coming, you're like, ooh, like.
So strength training really improved that for you. And,
so if you have a bad knee, that's a reason to get into strength training, not a reason to avoid it.
Yeah, and I have to say, so I have my own knee issues. I'd never broken anything before last year, and then I broke my kneecap in half. Highly, highly, highly do not recommend. 0 out of 10, not a great experience. But they told me it would be a 3 to 6 month total recovery. And I recovered completely from the day of the accident to my last doctor's appointment in 2 months, 8 weeks, start to finish. So, I think that all of the time that I've put in strength training previous to the accident and supplements and vitamins, and we'll get into that a little bit later in the episode, but all of that really contributed to my quick healing. And so I think that investing in yourself, in your fitness, really is impactful in areas that you may not even consider, So
Yeah.
word to the wise, as you get older and you break bones, you just don't recover the same. And
Yeah.
strength training can definitely be beneficial to recovery.
So I made a little Instagram reel of the
Entire journey.
40 fat 40 to fit 40
Okay.
of the journey. And in there, I have some pictures from when I was on the farm and then the process, and you can see the change. So the hard thing is that in the process, you don't really see the change for a while. And that's when a lot of people off ramp and they stop doing it. But I know because I had the accountability, I had the coaches encouraging me. And then additionally,
And you had a specific goal in mind.
I had a very specific goal in mind.
I think that was a
and a
game
date.
changer. Yeah.
Yeah. So on the back end of that, though, I was a little bit nervous that, like, okay, I've done this big thing, high accountability. Now I'm going to go and I'm going to walk this stage. And then afterwards, what?
Mm-hmm.
Then it's like donuts and
Right.
like good times or,
Right.
or like, what am I going to do? And so I hired a coach who was also in the program with us, but he also does personal coaching. Because I said, okay, 3 months. If I can get through, it's in October, so I'm like, if I can get through Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas, and holidays. We went away for a month and had friends with us, and we were eating out, doing all this stuff. If I can get through that, then I know I'll be good. And so I hired him to put together a 3-month plan. I said, I'm not trying to bulk. I'm not trying to get bigger. I'm not,
Just trying to sustain.
I just want to sustain, right? I just want to keep it simple and sustain. Well, there's 2 things that are true. Number one, the muscles are rented, and the rent is due every week. It's not a monthly thing, and it's not quite a daily thing, but every week the rent's due. And so if you want to keep the muscles that you work for, you got to keep paying rent. But the other side of it was, which I was really hopeful of, but wasn't sure of, is, during that time, we started with 3 times a week, maybe 45-minute workouts, and we ramped our way all the way up to 5 times a week. And I was working out from an hour to an hour and a half a day.
Because you were trying to get stage ready.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah. That was an
and I have to
intense.
say, yeah. So that's not sustainable,
No.
really. I think it's great that you had this specific goal in mind. My goal, it's kind of funny. I was thinking about it just now and I'm like, do I have a specific goal in mind? And I think like going back to the origin story of my journey, like seeing my trainer at her podium and being like, I want to look like her. That's my goal, right?
Yeah.
And so I still don't look like her, but she also trains for competitions and she's like won bikini body, competitions and the whole thing. So I feel like my goalpost is kind of constantly moving because she's always working on herself and getting fitter. So I don't know if
You're like a greyhound. You're like a greyhound and you're chasing a rabbit that just is not getting any closer.
But for me, that works. Like I love it. And I'm on a path to mastery. Have a growth mindset. And so that's fine. But for you, you had this specific goal. And I think that from what I gathered or what I'm sensing just from, being your partner, you had a little bit of a nervous energy around, when this is done, like, then what? Because, that's not sustainable, but it's reasonable to think that you would be able to maintain what you earned, right?
Yeah.
But how? Because
but
you're not
rent does the rent cost the same amount?
Right. And that unknown, I think, was freaking you out a little bit.
Yeah, well, I just didn't know. I mean, I knew I couldn't sustain that. I also know I travel. I know there has to be ways for me to still get a sort of workout in on days that are just too busy. We're entrepreneurs. We don't have a set schedule, but sometimes we do have busy stretches.
Life happens.
Yeah, well, where do you fit that in?
Life is lifing.
And so, yeah. And so I talked to Justin and I said, hey, I don't want anything over an hour, and I want 3 to 4 times a week, I told him. And I want a short one and then some like under an hour ones, right? So I have 4 workouts a week on the app that I go in and I pick and do them in any order. 2 of them are 50 minutes and 2 of them are 30 minutes. And the 30-minute ones one of them is super intense. It's the best workout of the 4. It's very, very hard. I would definitely say that's not the easy day. That's just the quicker day, right? And so I look at time. Well, how's my time going? How much time do I have in the morning? I come home from dropping the kids off. So what I found, which is totally different from you, bought a shed and then put some weights in there. Our kids started working out too, our high school kids.
Oh, babe, you've got more than some weights in there.
We got a bunch in there.
Bands and a bench and weights and all. It's all outfitted.
Yeah.
What do I call it?
Our prison yard. Yeah, we have our prison yard workouts. So the kids will come out sometimes, and the kids have they'll have the bench out and the rack out
Right.
in the yard, and then another kid is doing planks, and a kid's doing a farmer's walk around. So
Right.
I enjoy working out here. I don't want to waste time. I don't want to drive to a gym.
Right.
Spend 7 minutes thinking about how I don't really want to go in because it's only 7 minutes away, the closest gym. And then park the vehicle, then go in there. I'm like, that 30-minute day, I could be halfway done in the time it takes to get to the gym and get started. So I'd rather just like walk out the door, do it. Also, I put a big TV in the shed. It's like takes up half the size of the shed. We got it for free. I put it in there, and I'll put sports on there. I'll put talk show stuff on there, like Premier League talk show, like reviewing the weekend of soccer, and I'll just kind of listen to that in the background and then go through the app. And I love the app. The app it lets me know what I lifted last time for the same workout in each category, how many reps I did of each one, and so I can kind of track and I can improve, or I can increase the lift amount.
So I would say something that I think is really interesting is like at the heart of it, we both value and need the same thing. We both value and need community and accountability and coaching.
And it's coaching, and not just coaching as like everybody needs coaching, but like we needed to be taught how to do this, right?
Right.
If you don't have a history in the gym, if you didn't play a high level in college at a time when you were supposed to do working out where they were guiding you and everything,
Right.
I didn't know how to do anything.
Neither
And
of
so-
us had stepped foot in a weight room until we were in our 40s.
Right.
And so we needed guidance.
My-
we needed resources.
I didn't know how to do any of these lifts, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when I say I worked out an hour to an hour and a half, no one in my group was working out that long. I just had to watch every video.
Figuring it
I didn't know
out.
how to do stuff, right? And so when it's like engage your core, I'm like, I don't even know what those words mean. I don't know how to do that.
But
So,
what's
yeah.
interesting to me is that even though at the heart of it, we need and desire the same things, the way that we go about doing it is very different, right?
Yeah.
You do the backyard prison yard workouts,
Love it.
right? You're on your own, you're on your app, you're in your own little bubble, you're not surrounded by people, and it's a totally different vibe. For me, I like going away from our home, down the street to a gym, to a controlled environment. I have in person a trainer, and there are people around me who are actually, it's really motivating for me to like see my gym friends and the people who are working out, and we see each other consistently and the progress, and it's encouraging. And I like the machines, and I do free weights too, but we just go about it very differently. But I think the key here is find what works for you, right? Like find what works for you and then do that and do it consistently. Show up for yourself. And it's never too late. Whether you're 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, like start today.
Yeah, there were
Start
guys in my
late.
group that were just starting to lift weights, and they're in their late 50s, early 60s.
Right.
And they'd never done it before.
Yeah.
And their bodies totally changed.
Yeah.
And it's important to know now, like, I'm not doing any of those things. I'm not doing any of the testosterone supplements or injections. I'm not doing any of that stuff. And there's people that need it. I'm not saying anything negative about that, but I'm not doing any of that. I'm doing protein, like protein shakes and creatine. And that's it. And I always forget
Same.
to take the creatine. I always forget it. So, but
I don't.
But I know. but I'm also not trying to bulk up really big. I want to stay athletic thin. Like
Right.
I want to surf. I don't want to get so big that I lose flexibility and
No
mobility.
roids
Right?
for you.
No. So I'm not taking any of that stuff that a lot of people are taking. And I think when people see the changes that I had, they probably assume
Probably.
that I did some shortcuts, but the shortcuts don't. And testosterone is not really a shortcut. It can replace what you're losing naturally
Yeah,
with
some
age,
people need
or
to
some people
replace
just have
hormones.
low testosterone,
Sure.
and you should get checked out. You should get tested because that could be a reason.
But I think ultimately what worked for us was getting down to the brass tacks. Like, what are the basics? What is the real simple stuff that we need to do? Track our macros.
Yeah.
Eat more protein.
And track our macros. You're saying that you're just like know what you're putting in your body.
Right.
As simple as
know
that.
what foods contain what.
Between these, so I didn't understand what macros were.
Right.
All we're tracking is protein, carbs, and fat.
Right.
Those three things. And if you just track, and it's on every label of everything you eat. So if you weigh it, or if you eat a packet of something, you can look at how many servings it is. Don't pretend it's one serving when it says it's 3 servings, and then you have to multiply the numbers by 3. But we track all that, and so yeah, we have some hacks that we do for that.
Yeah.
Why don't you start with some of your hacks and kind of, or how you get maybe the extra things that you need that you don't naturally get?
Yeah, so we did mention like supplements. So
Yep.
for me, I have a nighttime routine where I take a handful of vitamins and supplements. I take fish oil, magnesium, saffron, calcium, prebiotic, probiotic. It's a symbiotic, creatine. So I'm taking that stuff
And a lot of
every
that's
night.
because of the research you've done about premenopause and
Perimenopause, brain health.
perimenopause.
Yeah, all that stuff. It's not just for my hitting my nutrition goals. Magnesium helps me sleep better, regulates my mood. Saffron is like the happy, what's it called? It's not a vitamin or a mineral. What is saffron?
Grass.
It helps
A
improve
weed.
your mood. Fish oils for your brain. So I'm taking these things for my overall health, but some things that I take, like creatine, that's definitely geared towards helping me reach my fitness goals. So I'm taking supplements. And then additionally, I'm not so worried about certain macros. The one that I'm targeting every single day is protein. I'm trying to get as much protein as I possibly can. So you're supposed to be taking in 0.75 grams of protein for every pound towards your goal weight,
Every
right?
pound that you weigh.
Yes, or to your goal weight.
Okay.
So I'm
So
trying.
100 pounds, you'd eat 75 grams of protein.
Right.
Okay.
So, it's
Because my goals would be 100 pounds.
Sure. It's tough, like when you start tracking, it's really interesting because you think, like, if you're just eating all willy-nilly, you're like, of course, I eat chicken at dinner, I have eggs for breakfast, there's usually protein in my lunch. Like, of course I'm hitting my protein goals. And then you start tracking, you're like, whoa, I wasn't anywhere near it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So for me, like, I have to rely on like protein shakes and supplemental things like bars and stuff to help me reach my goals, to make sure I'm getting enough protein in a day. So those are some things that I do to help me stay on track. What about
And
you?
my big one is pre-made meals. Not the meals where you get it and all the ingredients are there and then you work for 50 minutes, you mix it all together, and you put it in the oven for 20 minutes. Not like that. Just a 5-minute microwavable heat up little meal where everything's already...
One person serving.
One person serving, everything's portioned out. And so the company I use is Flex Pro Meals. That's because they do a gluten-free option. And I know specifically how much protein I'm getting in each meal, how many carbs, and then how much fat I'm getting. I'm careful on which meals I select. They have a huge menu. And so I'll select ones that are higher on protein than the other two, and throw a few in that are maybe a little bit lower on carbs. That way I can have some little rice cake snacks in the evenings, some of the caramel flavored ones, not the bland ones. My big hack though, that really helped me was, I like to snack. And I like to snack when
You're
I'm
a snacker,
watching a game.
I'm not so much.
Yeah, I like to snack. And so if I'm watching a game, and I like watching sports, and I like combining the two. And so I found Danon's, Dannon or apostrophe S, I'm not sure. Danon's.
I believe it's pronounced Danon.
Danon's. Sure, that sounds better. Danon's Light and Fit yogurt. The Greek vanilla yogurt has a couple different flavors. They're really, really good. They're a little bit higher in protein than all the other options, and a little bit lower in fat at the same time. So it's a good combo. So what I do is I put a little bit into a little container, the same size as a large yogurt container. I put a little bit in there, and then I put frozen fruit in. Frozen strawberries are great. I'll put in some frozen sweet cherries, some blueberries. I buy the bags of mixed frozen fruit, and I'll put those in there, stir it in, mix it around. And then I just leave it for a second, and then that yogurt, and you got to get the Greek yogurt because the regular one is too thin, it doesn't stick. So the Greek yogurt sticks, and then it freezes to the fruit.
Like a shell.
Like a little shell. And now it feels like you're cheating because it's a sweet flavor. The fruit's even sweeter than normal. It's frozen. I love frozen fruit. And so I can have that, and it does two things. It makes me feel full without really any calories. And then because of the fiber, it slows down your digestion. And so you take longer to process the food. And so it's in your body for longer, meaning you don't poop as often.
Okay.
But that process of it staying in you for longer makes you feel full.
Right.
And so you don't eat as much.
So that's kind of your treat hack.
Yeah, that's the hack. I texted our coach. I was like, oh my gosh, I just figured this out. It's almost no calories, and I'm using the correct yogurt, not just any yogurt, but it feels like I'm cheating the whole time. And I'll have like 2 bowls in a day of this frozen fruit. It's so good.
Yeah, another thing that you figured out was the PB Fit,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So the powdered peanut butter.
PB2 or something it's called. Yeah.
And then mixing that up and putting it on a rice cake. And that's a pretty like low calorie.
Almost no fat, just carbs and protein.
Right.
And then I would do the cocoa one too, cocoa mixed in, because it's a little bit sweeter. Tastes good on the rice cakes. But yeah.
For me, I'm not really a big fan of meal prepping or even like those meal plans or whatever. But I do find it super helpful for me to have high protein foods available at the ready in the fridge.
Yeah.
So having like egg bites, cottage cheese, chicken sausage, because we're very busy people. And so having something to grab on the go, or even like if we're not on the go, but we're here at home and it's just like, oh crap, it's 2:00 and I haven't eaten lunch. Like having a good source of protein to just grab and eat real quick for me really helps.
Yeah, me too. It's all about making the good choice easier and more accessible, because a bag of chips is right there, but that's not going to fill you up for long, and it's not the better choice, right?
And just to plug a book, there's a great book called Atomic Habits where they talk about that. We did learn a lot about habits through that book, and that is one of the key things is making it enjoyable, making it accessible, making it easy for yourself, right? Like be able to press that easy button when you need it. So I think that that's key for sure. So why don't we talk about barriers and motivation? I think that that's a good place to transition to. So we are 2 very busy entrepreneurs. We have 5 kids, 3 businesses, a nonprofit. Life is lifing, like I said. So, there are a lot of obstacles and barriers that everybody experiences when they're starting a fitness journey, or, if you're on a fitness journey, you're going to come up against some obstacles. So what are some obstacles or barriers that you've experienced, and how have you combated those?
Well, one is just the challenge of fitting it all in, right? Time-wise. And so one thing I do is, I told you I have 2 50 to an hour, well, I'm usually about 50-minute workouts and then 2 30 minutes. I always do a 50-minute workout at the start of the week. I always do one on Monday. That way I only have 3 workouts left. And I almost always take my weekends off from working out. And so after that first Monday, that longer workout, the harder of the longer ones, then I know that I have 3 workouts in the next 4 days. So I have one day that I can wake up and not work out. And I have to do it before Friday, because I don't want to take 3 consecutive days off. So I always want Friday, and I want Friday to be a quick one. So I'm going to do the 2 long ones in the first 3, and I'm going to do one of them the first day, and then I'm going to have a break.
So you're fitting it into your life.
Right. So I'm really intentional on Monday of starting well. Okay. Right? Because then it's less that I do the hardest, longest one first, and then I'm like, I can fit all the other ones in, because there's not as long as that one, right?
I love that.
And so I do that so that my week gets easier. It's not actually easier. It's just easier to fit in my schedule because it's a little bit less time, right? So that actually more intense workouts. I didn't
know that. Good for you.
Oh, thank you. And so I do that. I also make a protein shake up before I go out there. And one of my routines is I don't like to come home and then from dropping the kids off at school and then know I got to work out right now. So what I always do is I always come home and make myself a latte. And I enjoy the process of making a cup of coffee in the morning. I love it. So I know that that's what I'm coming home to. So I'm not like, ugh, as I like park the car and then sit there like you do in the parking lot of the gym, pretending you're going to go in. I don't do that. I just walk straight in because I know I'm making coffee, not going to a workout, right? And then once I have that coffee, I kind of sip on it. And I'll usually look at the clock and I'll be like, oh, it's 7:55. Okay, I'm going to start my workout by 8:15 or 8:20. So I put a number on, because if I don't measure it and I don't track it, then it's all of a sudden it's 9:30, right? And I'm still slowly sipping a cup of coffee.
That's so interesting, because I think I know we're wired so differently, but like if I would have my treat before, I wouldn't do the thing. Like I would reserve the treat for after. And be like, if you do that thing, then you can have your latte. Yeah. So that's just really interesting.
I just know that.
For you.
Yeah, I just need to have something that I'm coming home to that I'm gonna.
Yeah.
Like, right?
Well, I guess you're technically doing it the way that I just described would work for me, because you did the hard thing, which is the school drop off.
Yeah, it's true. Got up in the morning, took the kids to school. So do that. The Celsius are great, because Celsius gives you energy, but also burns
Shout
a
out
little bit of fat. Celsius.
Not sponsored,
Not
but we
sponsored
want to
yet.
be.
Yet. So Celsius is great. We also, you want to combine cardio with lifting weights. And so,
And I would say strength training is cardio. There are some times where I'm at the gym, I'm doing some of these exercises. I'm like, woo, my heart rate.
they are, but it's not the same as like just a cardio focused event that
Correct.
you're doing, your experience. And so for us, our cardio, you always want to get to zone 2, which they describe as you're able to talk, but you're running out of breath if you're talking too much while you're walking.
AKA speed walking.
Yeah, speed walking. So
we're basically that couple. Like, we just haven't gotten the matching tracksuits yet.
and we don't have the poles.
We'll get there.
We're missing the poles. I
We
saw a
will.
guy walking today,
Uh-huh.
and he actually had them behind his back, and he's kind of like this, and his wife was like, "Oh, the poles," and he was just
Wow.
carrying them as for show, I think. Maybe her
Show off.
backup poles. He's just carrying his poles. But I'm like, oh, someday it's gonna be us out with our poles. But
So some days, we can't get to the gym or we can't fit a workout in, but we can fit in, a walk around the block after dinner.
Yeah.
And we try to get in, 5,000-10,000 steps after dinner if we can fit that in.
and
So-
that's not like that one's not dreary. Like some days the working out, you're like, ugh, gloom
yeah,
and doom.
some days
but-
you're just like, I can't do that today. I just can't.
But the walk
you can
isn't, because
walk.
we're usually talking at the end of the day, connecting. We're talking about something, talking about the kids, talking about something, but we're just getting out and walking, and we're
Or
getting a
even-
little bit of a break from the kids too.
Yeah.
Sometimes they come with us, but they don't.
Sure.
They slow us down, and then we can't get into zone 2. But
The other day, I thought it was cool that we reclaimed our time. We were at one of our kids'
Oh,
football
yeah.
practices, and we were at a park, and there's this loop around the park. And instead of just sitting there and watching the practice, we got up and we did a few laps.
a few.
Yeah.
It was like 45 minutes of speed walking around the practice.
But we got like 7,000 steps
Yeah,
in where
yeah.
we just normally would have just sat there, right? So think of ways that you can reclaim your time, or, even if you're a busy professional, maybe you can get one of those walking pads that you can put in your office at your standing desk and get some steps in that way. So, just thinking through your week, and I love how you were talking about how you have these, you time block, you fit your workouts into your week. Like, we're big advocates on designing your life before someone designs it for you. So we're very diligent on creating that intentional schedule, that calendar. We have
Yeah.
our life calendared out. We know where we have blocks of time. Check out the podcast on designing your life. We did talk about that in a previous podcast, but I
Design
do.
Your Life by who? Oh, our podcast.
Yeah, we have
Oh.
a podcast on that.
Yeah,
But
check out our own podcast.
yeah, go listen to a different episode. But
I thought we were plugging somebody else's podcast.
no, we're plugging us,
I
babe.
know, I got it.
Okay, but I do the same thing. My trainer schedules out 2-3 weeks in advance. She puts up her schedule on the app, and I look at my calendar and I block out time with her,
Yeah.
and I get it on my schedule, and then my assistant schedules my meetings around those appointments. Because
But for some people, that's because we are entrepreneurs, right? And so we kind of own our schedule a bit.
Yeah.
For people that have a 9 to 5, there's pluses and minuses to that,
Sure.
right? Like you can't just fit it in at 10, but sometimes the way we do it, which is like plug it in here, plug it in here, plug it in here, different days of the week, different times, it's really hard to get into a consistent rhythm. We have consistency in that because that's our life. And so we find consistency just in the execution of something, not necessarily tied to a specific day or a specific time, right? And so I am going to consistently do 4 workouts a week. That's my rhythm. For most people, they need to have it at a certain time of the day. It works best if to build a rhythm and to build a pattern that becomes a habit. Same time of the day, same day of the week. And so you can have it in the morning before work. Some people love that. Some people love starting their day and then their whole day is better. I could definitely understand that would be true for me if I enjoyed getting up in the morning. For others, it's an end of the day thing. They come home, they've had the stress of work, they've had the stress of something, they just come and they just grind out a workout.
Or maybe if you work at a cool office and you have a gym, maybe it's a lunchtime thing.
Yeah.
But figure out what works for you. And I think get it on your calendar, commit to that day and that time.
And it doesn't have to be 5 days a week, an hour a day.
Oh,
It can
no.
be, you can start with 2 days a week. I recommend 2 over 1. One is such a long gap between doing it that's hard to build that into a rhythm, but a minimum of 2, maybe even 3 days a week. And you can do 25 minutes. You can use
Right,
ChatGPT
yeah.
to build you out a workout schedule, something. ChatGPT is great because you can tell exactly what the result you want is and say, build me a 25-minute workout. I have free weights only and bands, and it can do it for you. You can also hire a trainer, tell them the exact same thing, but get something that's manageable for you. One of the things I kept saying within our group was, I was like, okay, but like they'd tell us exactly what we're supposed to do in the group. I'd say like, I do it a little bit differently. And when they would call me out on it, I'm like, yeah, but I'm doing this so that I can do it forever. And I know that I'm not going to do that after this. I'm not going to do it. As we're getting towards the end of that 10-month thing, I was like, okay, so how does this become sustainable for me? And then figuring out what my rhythm was. And that's when I was like, okay, I can't keep doing hour and 15-minute workouts. I'm just going to drop off. And so a lot of the guys afterwards who have struggled to keep going, it's because they're still on that same app. They're still trying to do the same workouts, and I could not do that, right? So I do 2 workouts out a week that are a little bit longer and 2 that are super short. And so find that, and then I feel good about the long one because I'm like, oh, I've just knocked one of the long ones out. Now I've just got short ones left, right? And so just encourage everybody to find something that they can commit to, because it's not about lifting thousands of pounds. It's about your lifting frequency, like how often you do it, how
Consistency is
consistent
key.
you are, right? And then as you get older, I'm 46, I'm not trying to lift the heaviest weight. I'm trying to lift a lower weight more times. That takes longer to work out when you do that, right? But it's better for your health and it's not if you get injured, it's when you get injured. You will get injured because you're doing physically active things. That happens as our bodies start to get old. We get injured as well. But if you can reduce the load of how much weight you're lifting in each individual lift down to a lower load but more reps, it's going to be better for your body.
Yeah, I would say progress over perfection and
Yeah.
consistency is key.
Yeah, and celebrate things like, don't just celebrate, oh, I hit my personal best and I maxed out at this amount. Those aren't the things to celebrate. Celebrate a streak of 5 consecutive weeks where you worked out 3 times a week.
Yeah.
That's a celebration, right?
And comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah.
So really take a good hard look at you, yourself, your goals, your accomplishments. Celebrate those small wins. It's you versus you, right?
Yeah.
It's nobody else. Honestly, nobody really cares
Nobody
about
cares.
what's going on with
I
you.
want the strong recommendation I have is take before pictures. Take
Yeah.
before pictures and take before videos, and don't take them in the best light right after working out when your muscles are pumped and the angle's just right, so the shadows make it look like your belly disappeared. Don't take those pictures. Take the ones that you don't want to post.
Everybody who I talk to that's on some sort of a transformation, fitness, health and fitness journey absolutely regrets if they don't take before photos. So take the before photos.
Take the before photos. It can be motivating and encouraging as you start to experience progress to look back and be like, oh yeah, I am progressing. I had a big line in my back of where I had a roll back there, right? From the back, you could see it on one side. And every back, if I didn't have that before, I wouldn't even remember that I used to have that. And so when I see that,
I would. Just kidding.
when I see those pictures from before, because I was forced to upload them all, and I see also like you were taking videos out the window of me in secret, and I'm like trying to lift, and it's like 10 pounds on each side. I'm like, trying to lift. It's really encouraging to be able to see the specific weight that I was really struggling with.
You're welcome.
And be like, oh, look at that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Anything that you want to leave our listeners with? Any closing thoughts or?
Yeah, I would just say
Wise words.
it's never too late. I enjoy surfing. I enjoy being at the beach. I enjoy watching sunsets and hiking, being outdoors. So if you like being outdoors, then start prioritizing it.
Right.
And then when you're outdoors, be like, how could I use this time that I enjoy to also build towards a successful fitness journey that I want to be on, right?
Right.
And then understanding that this is not a scare tactic. This is just a reality that you're on your, how do I word it? You're not on a time limit, but if you're middle age, you're running out of time to set yourself up for success. And it's going to be a pivot and a shift in the direction of your life. And you have to keep maintaining it. You have to keep building, you have to keep doing the new habits, right? And so you're not just lifting weights for 10 months to try to get in shape so that then when you're 70, you're fine. If you stop, you've made no long-term progress, right? And so it's not about lifting weights today to have a huge change in your body and in your health so that you can flex a few times for some pictures and then you're good. It's not like that.
Right.
You're doing all the things that do let you do those fun things, like send your wife pictures of you flexing after you work out
Every day.
every day. It's fun to do that.
Or
That's
to
kind of
look
fun.
good on that beach vacation or whatever,
Yeah,
whatever
that's
that
fun.
is. It's great.
But it's all about building a new lifestyle, right? And so
Right.
you don't avoid any delicious foods. I don't avoid any delicious foods unless they have gluten in them. We don't like not eat stuff. We don't go to a hotel and the first thing we check out is the gym, right? I think a lot of people think that we do, and a lot of people think that we eat very carefully and we
Restrictively.
very restricted.
Yeah. Or that we're like up at 4 a.m. every day working out.
No,
Like
never.
crazy people.
No.
We do what works for us and we fit it into our
Yeah.
lifestyle.
And it's all about consistency and moderation, right? And so I'm not going to eat an entire gluten-free cheesecake. But I am going to have a oversized piece of it, and then I'm going to just have balanced out during the day, like the different foods, right? Or maybe the next day I'm like, okay, I got to go heavy on protein because I had something that I had nachos, but if I'm at a sporting event and we're all having nachos, I'm not the fitness person that's sitting there not eating the nachos.
Right.
It's just balance, right?
Yeah,
And so
live your life.
once you build the habit of tracking what you eat, you just get better at understanding what you're eating. And so if I look at the 3 categories all the time: protein, carbs, and fat. I'm like, okay, if I've had too many carbs, then I got to balance out. And fat can be healthy. It's not all fat's bad,
And
right?
it's interesting when you cut out things like, for myself, I've totally cut out alcohol. I've cut out sugar. Like there are certain things that you cut out and then you don't even crave them anymore, So yeah, it's funny how that works.
And so what are the last tips and tricks from you?
Yeah, I would say, you took the words right out of my mouth. I was thinking like, just start.
Yeah.
Just start now, start late, do it messy, no matter what stage of life you're in, what things look like for you, what resources you have, like just start. Whether it's, you're 40 or it's February or whatever, just get started, do something, move your body, and then just start building on that momentum. And then I would say progress over perfection and consistency is key. Just stick with it. And if you need to find, community, coaches, accountability, do it. Put yourself out there, be vulnerable, and connect with other people who are also being vulnerable, and just support each other, lift each other up, and just get on the journey and stick with it.
Okay, give me 2 things to end. 2 benefits, one obvious and one not obvious.
I'm going to have to think about it. You go first.
Okay, obvious, I would say it feels a lot better taking your shirt off at the beach when you're in your mid-40s and you've been working out. That's an obvious one. Realistically, I'd say surfing is a lot easier when you're in shape. Just the physical part of it, but also the balance, everything is a lot better. That's an obvious one. That is a payoff for me that I enjoy. A non-obvious one would be, as an entrepreneur and someone in business, people view you differently when you look like someone who has the self-control and the consistency to be working out and to be fit. I have experienced that they make assumptions about you that are positive. And it doesn't mean that you're not equally skilled when you're not in physical shape, and it doesn't mean that you're not equally capable and that people shouldn't think just as highly of you. But the fact is that when you're in a negotiation, when you're in a meeting, when you're in some sort of business related experience, people do look at you as someone who will do what they say. They look at you as someone who will do hard things to achieve a goal. And so it does help you in your entrepreneurial journey to be presenting as someone who has the habits of taking care of themselves. We used to talk about this, like, why do girls care what shoes you wear and what clothes you wear? Well, it's not really about the clothes, it's not really about the shoes. It's a lot of times...
You're talking about when you're dating.
When you're dating, yeah, sorry. A lot of times they'll look and be like, okay, if he takes care of himself, he'll take care of me.
Right.
And so it really has nothing to do with the shoes. It has nothing to do with the clothes you're wearing. It has nothing to do with the car you're driving. It's like, oh, he has a good job. He doesn't sleep in his car anymore. But he takes care of himself and he's going to take care of me. Same thing in business. Like, oh, he has good habits. He's someone who does what he says. He does hard things to achieve a goal. He'll do that in this work relationship as well. It's an assumption that's not always true, but it's just starting you off a little bit ahead of the game. So that's been a benefit and something positive that I would categorize non-obvious.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say, I'm not going to lie, the obvious one is, like I said, looking good naked.
Whoa, that's 2 times naked, 1 time breast. This is definitely has a rating on this episode.
I love that I am in the best shape of my life. I'm 41 and I look better physically than I did when I was 21.
Yeah.
And when people guess my age and they guess it 10 years younger than I am, like that just pumps me up, like gasses me right up. I love it. So I'm not going to lie. It does feel good to look good. And that's the obvious one. I would say the not obvious one for me was a benefit that I didn't see in the way that I choose to work out, or the fitness journey that I'm on, going to the gym and working out with a trainer. My kids would see me put on my workout clothes and get my water bottle and then head out the door, and I'd be like, bye guys, I'm going to the gym. And then they'd see me come home, but they'd never actually see me putting in the work. And so I think the coolest thing about this whole journey that you're on, doing these backyard prison workouts, is that our kids see it, right? And so it really has transformed our whole family. Like, they see you out there, they're motivated, they're getting in there, they're asking you to show them, your exercises and create workout plans for them. And so I think for me, the not obvious one, or the one that I didn't see coming, or the unexpected best of all of this, getting fit after 40, is the long-term positive effects on our family, on our kids. And so it's just completely transformed our family.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping the trajectory of their lives, and that I'm hoping that their fitness journey doesn't have to start at 40, and that it's starting now, and that they can maintain that, and it's sustainable for them throughout their whole life.
When you're saying they were all watching, they were all definitely watching when you were recording, and they were all pressed up against the glass slider door watching.
Oh yeah, I was taking those
into
videos.
The hibiscus.
I was taking
plant.
those videos because we thought it was funny. We're like, look at Dad.
I was puking in the hibiscus plant over there, and I turned and looked, and there was a line of people just laughing, looking out the window, and I was like, I need to have energy to have any reaction.
We were
I just
laughing in
like,
support.
"Whoa."
Yeah.
Oh. Anyway,
Good times.
great times.
Thanks
Love you.
for chatting.
Love you.
Love you too.